Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Graveveil. Before we start, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos like this. Now let's begin. I fucking hated this job, seriously. I knew it the second I put on that stiff Pepsi windbreaker and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like a lost high schooler trying to cosplay as a grown-up. But hey, after years of scraping by as a horror writer, maybe cosplaying adulthood was the closest I was gonna get. See, I used to think I was close. Real close. Sold some scripts, got a couple short stories published, even had a novella that made a little splash on Reddit. For a second there, I thought Logan Ward might just be a name that mattered. But by 28, reality had dragged me by the collar and thrown me into the world of cold storage rooms and discount cola displays. The job was simple: stock shelves, deliver Pepsi products, repeat. No room for metaphors or meaning. Just cardboard cuts on your fingers and muscle cramps in your back. I wasn't built for this kind of grind, but here I was, bending over for corporate America because my girlfriend Tara wanted stability. Tara was great. Beautiful, smart, had her shit together. She worked in tech and actually enjoyed it like some kind of unicorn. We'd been together for 2 years, and I wasn't about to let my starving artist routine ruin that. So I took the job. I figured I could suffer through 12-hour shifts if it meant keeping our rent paid and the fridge full. Enter Dennis, ex-army, ex-human, all asshole, my trainer. 50-something, built like a fire hydrant and proud of it. He walked like he was still patrolling Fallujah and talked like a drill sergeant doing a bad Southern impression. His idea of training was yelling at me to move faster, stalk straighter, sweat harder. "I don't play games, boy," he'd said on day 1. "You fuck up, I clean up with your job." Poetic. By day 2, I was already fantasizing about faking a back injury. Or at least punching Dennis in his smug, wrinkle-tanned face. But I didn't. Because deep down, I knew something worse than Dennis was waiting. I just didn't know it was waiting inside a Walmart. The parking lot was dead, not just quiet dead. A few scattered cars sat like forgotten corpses in the early dawn haze, their windshields iced over, hoods blanketed in the kind of frost that made you hate February with religious intensity. I pulled into a spot near the entrance, parked next to Dennis's ancient Civic, which was decked out with Army vet decals like it was still enlisted. The only thing missing was a mounted turret. The Walmart neighborhood market loomed ahead. One of those smaller, diet Walmarts without the chaotic grandeur of the real thing. No electronics, no clothing, no screaming kids. Just groceries and that strange low-level despair exclusive to early morning retail. The sliding glass doors didn't open. I stopped, waited. Nothing. I stepped closer. The motion sensors still didn't react. I was left staring into a well-lit ghost town. The overhead fluorescents flickered slightly, humming like a broken lullaby. Inside, I could make out fully stocked shelves, carts left mid-aisle, and not a single human being in sight. I knocked on the glass, then banged. "Hey," I yelled. For a second, I thought maybe I was early. Maybe they weren't open yet. But then I saw him, Dennis. He came sprinting down the soda aisle like something had bitten him. His steps were fast, desperate, completely out of character for the guy who usually moved like time owed him something. He reached the door, yanked it open manually with a grunting effort, and glared at me. "You're late," he barked. "I'm literally early," I said, checking my phone. 5:26 a.m. Dennis grabbed my arm, hard. "Get inside." His tone didn't leave room for argument. I stepped into the freezing store. My breath fogged the air like I'd just entered a meat locker. And yet, what really froze me was the silence. No beeps from registers, no chatter, no ambient life at all. Just me, Dennis, and the faint echo of some late 90s pop hit playing on the overhead speakers. I looked around again. Empty. "Where's everyone else?" I asked. Dennis didn't answer. He just shoved me toward aisle 8. "Shelves, check them, fast." And with that, he disappeared into the back room. I stood there for a second, listening to that god-awful pop song whisper through the speakers. It was just me now. Just me and the sodas. I didn't move at first. Something about the silence behind that pop song, it gnawed at me. Like there was a missing layer. No humming of fridges. No dull whine of fluorescent lights. Just that weirdly clean music echoing through a store that felt staged. I finally walked toward aisle 8, passing through a battlefield of abandoned carts and open notebooks. It was like everyone had left mid-task, like something had interrupted them all at once. The aisle smelled faintly like plastic and citrus cleaner. The shelves were a mess. Cases tilted, cans dented, some boxes half open like someone had started restocking and never finished. I pulled my notepad and pen from my jacket pocket and tried to pretend I gave a shit. As I scribbled down what we needed, I noticed it again. No sounds. None. Even my own breathing felt too loud. And the music. Now it was Shania Twain. That don't impress me much. The kind of song that only made you feel more alone in a place like this. Then something clanged. A loud metallic crash from the back room. I looked up, heart jumping into my throat. Just a shelf tipping over, I told myself. Or maybe Dennis dropping something. The man had the subtlety of a jackhammer. Still, I found myself walking slowly toward the sound. Past rows of mismatched soda boxes. Past a grocery cart that had a broken wheel and sat like a wounded animal in the middle of the aisle. The fluorescent lights above buzzed louder now, faint flickers starting. The illusion of normalcy slipping. At the end of the aisle, I paused, took a breath, looked back, nothing, just emptiness and Pepsi. I turned toward the frozen section. The glass doors fogged and clear in patches, like a window trying to remember how to breathe. There was a smell now, too faint but wrong. Not rotten, just off, like metal in something sweet that had gone sour. I looked at the double doors to the storage area. One of them was slightly ajar. A shadow flickered behind it. I stepped forward. Slowly, my boots squeaked on the tile. I reached the door and peeked inside. Rows of tall metal shelves. Unmarked boxes stacked high. Abandoned pallets. No Dennis, and no sound. I stepped in. Even colder in here, the air felt thicker. My fingers started to numb inside my gloves. There was a dripping noise now. I followed it. And then I saw it. A trail of soda leading toward the open back dock door. But it wasn't the fizzing sound I expected. It was a drip, heavy, wet, meaty. I followed the trail. Whatever had spilled, it wasn't soda. It was thicker, darker. The smell was stronger now. Not quite blood, not quite syrup, but something in between. Something wrong. My boots made wet sounds as I stepped closer to the dock. Light from outside poured in through the open rolling door. It illuminated a mess of boxes near the threshold, some Pepsi branded, some not. All of them leaking. At first, I assumed they were just busted cases, damage from shipping. But then I noticed the color of the puddles. They weren't brown. They were dark red, nearly black in the dim light. And then I saw the hand. It was poking out from one of the torn Pepsi 12-pack boxes. Pale fingers curled like a dead spider's legs. The nails were cracked and dirty, and there was blood caked into the wrinkles of the knuckles. My stomach flipped. I stepped back, eyes scanning the other boxes. More leaks, more pieces. One box had a torn flap, revealing what looked like a severed foot wearing a Walmart sneaker. Another oozed something lumpy and wet, and I didn't have the guts to look inside. I turned away just in time to gag. Bent over, breathing through my nose, I tried to keep from puking all over my boots. My brain scrambled for explanations. Prank? Drug cartel? Some elaborate art installation. None of it made sense. And all of it made me want to run. Then I saw the cart. The one I had started stacking earlier. It was full of boxes now, stacked high. Too high. Some of them were seeping through the cardboard. One box on top had a bloody thumb poking out from a crushed corner. Another looked like it had something pulpy pressed up against the inside, like meat wrapped in plastic. I stumbled toward it, ripped one open. Limbs, flesh, bone, all jumbled together like discount meat in a clearance bin. I staggered back, hand covering my mouth. Dennis! Where the hell was Dennis? I looked around the stockroom, no sign of him. Just the blood, the body parts, the trail of horror. And then I saw something new. A shadow near the loading dock trucks. It moved. I squinted, heart pounding. Another figure, tall, wearing the blue and yellow Walmart uniform, but oversized like it was draped over armor. The face was hidden behind a cardboard smiley face mask, crudely drawn, splattered with something dark. The figure tilted its head, and then it stepped forward. I didn't move. The figure walked toward me with the slow, confident stride of someone who knew the layout better than I ever would. Like this was his store. Like I was the one who didn't belong. The smiley face on his mask was lopsided, drawn in thick marker lines, now blurred by moisture or blood. The cardboard sagged slightly from one side, like the mask itself had seen too much. It made the fake smile look like it was melting. He held something in his hand. It took me a second to register it, a box cutter, but not the kind I had in my jacket pocket. This one was long, modified, a twisted love child between a utility knife and a chef's cleaver. The blade was blackened at the edge, curved slightly, and glistened like it had just been rinsed off, or like it was still wet with someone's insides. He raised it casually, like a chef showing off a new utensil. "Hey," I croaked, stepping back. He didn't speak, he didn't run, he just moved faster. I turned and bolted back into the stockroom, slipping on the wet floor. My hands slammed into a stack of crates, knocking them over with a crash that echoed like thunder in the empty cavern of concrete and steel. The killer followed. I could hear his boots slapping the tile behind me. Fast, purposeful, no rage. Just efficiency. Like this was a task, a routine. I ran through the maze of shelves, zigzagging between pallets, my breath ragged in panic climbing my throat like barbed wire. I reached the soda section again, our side of the storage area. Familiar ground, but now transformed. The Pepsi logos now looked grotesque, red-streaked from the leaking boxes. My cart, once just annoying, now looked like a delivery of death. I grabbed a 12-pack box at random and hurled it toward the approaching shadow. It exploded in midair, soda and something red spraying the walls. I didn't look back. I sprinted to the open dock door, cold air rushing into my lungs. I slipped once, caught myself on the edge of a crate, and stumbled out into the parking lot. Darkness swallowed me. Only 2 overhead lights flickered near the trucks. I scanned the lot, looking for anything, someone, anyone. Nothing. Just wind and the soft purr of a nearby truck engine. Behind me, a thud. He was close. I ran, past the delivery truck, past the rusted pallet jacks and stacked crates, toward the trees at the edge of the lot-thin, winter-bare woods that looked more like a junkyard than a forest. Branches clawed at my jacket as I entered the brush. I didn't stop. Not even when I heard the first crunch of boots behind me. I don't know how I got away. I remember trees, cold air ripping my lungs, my legs burning until I collapsed on someone's lawn a few blocks away. By the time I called 911, I could barely speak. They said they'd send someone. They always say that. The Walmart neighborhood market was closed when they arrived. Not just locked shuttered, like it hadn't been open in weeks. No delivery trucks, no lights. Nothing but dust in the windows and a temporarily closed for renovation sign zip-tied to the door. They searched, found nothing. No blood, no bodies, no Dennis. I told them everything. The cops looked at me like I was high or broken. One guy even asked if I'd fallen asleep on the job and dreamed the whole thing. I went home that night and sat in silence until dawn. Tara didn't ask. She just looked at me, then walked to the bedroom without a word. Later, I emptied my jacket pockets. A receipt from that Walmart. Timestamp for 5:47 a.m. dated today. I wasn't supposed to be there. Honestly, I should have gone home right after my shift ended at 10. But I forgot my wallet in the break room, and by the time I realized, they'd already locked the front entrance. I still had my badge, so I used the side employee entrance and slipped back in. That was the last normal thing that happened that night. The store was closed, all lights dimmed except for a few flickering fluorescents in the back. It felt strange, like walking into a version of Walmart designed for dreams or nightmares, familiar, but slightly wrong. The silence was the first thing that unnerved me. Walmart's never really quiet, even at night. But that night, it was like the building was holding its breath. I started walking toward the break room, passing the frozen food section when I noticed something odd. One of the cooler doors was cracked open, and there was frost spreading across the tile like veins. I pulled it shut without thinking and kept moving. That was the first time I thought maybe I wasn't alone. When I reached the break room, the overhead lights didn't turn on. Just the emergency light above the microwave blinking red. My wallet was still there, sitting on the table where I left it. I grabbed it, ready to head out, when I heard footsteps. Not the clean, confident walk of someone who belongs there. These steps were hesitant, dragging, slow. They weren't coming from the hallway, but from inside the store. I peeked out, expecting maybe security or another employee who stayed behind. But the figure I saw didn't match anyone I knew. They were wearing a Walmart vest, sure, but it was old faded blue with the outdated logo from years ago. And they were tall. Unnaturally tall, arms hanging low past the waist, head tilted forward like it was too heavy for the neck. I could hear faint cracking noises when they moved. I backed into the break room and quietly shut the door. No lock. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. Then, a voice from the intercom. Restocking will begin in 10 minutes. All associates must report to their designated aisles. Repeat. All associates must report. The voice was wrong, too flat, too rehearsed, like someone reading lines they didn't understand. And there was a weird delay between each sentence, like the recording had been spliced together badly. I thought maybe it was just a glitch, or a prank. But then I saw the lights flicker, and the temperature dropped. Not metaphorically, I could actually see my breath in the air. I cracked the door open a sliver to look again. Now there were more of them. At least 5. All in mismatched Walmart uniforms from different eras, moving slowly through the aisles, heads twitching toward sounds. One of them had a limp and dragged their foot, which made a wet slapping noise with every step. One dragged something behind them. A large, lumpy black bag that left a wet trail. I didn't wait to see more. I slipped out the side door of the break room and ducked into the garden center. It was darker there. I crouched behind a stack of mulch bags and tried to make sense of what I'd seen. Were these people ex-employees? Some kind of hazing prank? That's when one of them came in, not walking, crawling, on all fours. It sniffed the air like it could smell me. The sound of its sniffing echoed through the empty aisles, sharp, wet inhales that sent chills through my spine. I covered my mouth, and then just inches from where I was hiding, it stopped. Its head turned slowly, and for a second, I thought maybe it didn't see me. But then it whispered, "You're late for your shift." I ran. I didn't even try to be quiet. I just ran back through the aisles, knocking over displays and carts, not stopping until I saw the emergency exit sign glowing in the distance. But when I pushed the door, it didn't open. It was like it was welded shut. The intercom came on again. "Clock in, or be replaced." Something heavy landed behind me. I didn't turn to look. I just ran in the opposite direction, ducking into the electronics section, trying to lose them. At one point, I thought I was safe. I crouched behind a display of clearance headphones and tried to catch my breath. That's when I heard a click, then the low buzz of a TV turning on behind me. The screen showed static at first, then the image of me leave hiding, panicking, from an overhead camera. I wasn't just being hunted, I was being watched. I turned off the screen and sprinted toward the back of the store, thinking I might find the stockroom. Maybe a loading dock door still worked, anything. But every door I tried was locked or blocked by shelves that weren't there during the day. I ended up in the staff locker room. Everything looked normal at first. Lockers, benches, a half-empty soda on the counter. But then I noticed some of the photos taped inside the open lockers. Pictures of employees I'd never seen before, smiling, wearing old uniforms. All their faces had the same glazed look, eyes unfocused. Smiles slightly too wide. Like someone had told them to smile, and they just kept doing it, forever. Then I heard the humming. Not electronic, human. A lullaby, off-key, slowly getting louder. I hid inside one of the lockers. Cramped, but I didn't care. I closed the door just as the humming reached the doorway. Through the slits, I saw one of them walk in. Tall, pale, still humming, carrying something. It was a name tag, my name. I don't know how long I stayed in that locker. Could have been minutes. Could have been hours. My phone buzzed once, just once. A message from my roommate. You get home, okay? I didn't respond. Eventually, the humming faded. I left the locker room and followed the emergency arrows toward the warehouse. The lights flickered again. The air smelled like bleach and something sweet underneath. Rotten sweet. Like fruit left too long in the sun. Now I'm here. Hiding between pallets of box TVs. I found a charger and I'm typing this on my phone while it powers up. I don't know how many are out there. I don't know what they are, but I know they aren't employees. Not anymore. If anyone finds this, if you ever think about going back inside a closed Walmart, after hours don't. They don't restock shelves at night. They restock people. It started like every other night shift. I parked under the farthest flickering light in the Walmart lot, the one that always buzzed like it was short-circuiting. Maybe it was. Maybe we all were. I sat in my car a moment longer than I should have, engine off, music low, just delaying the inevitable. Inside, the store smelled like lemon cleaner and microwave burritos. Familiar, numb. I clocked in late again and headed straight to the back. No greetings. No smiles. We were all ghosts moving through routines. Amy gave me the look but didn't say anything, just pointed toward housewares like I already knew the punishment. Sam was hunched over a flatbed cart, eyes glazed. Marcus had his headphones in, nodding to something I couldn't hear. Everyone looked tired in that heavy way, not just physically, like we were stuck in a loop we couldn't name. I grabbed my cart and headed out. Aisle 12. Always aisle 12. I didn't even glance at the pallet list anymore. I could stock that section in my sleep. Cleaning sprays, plastic organizers, dusty artificial plants nobody ever bought. The store was quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Hollow. Like it was waiting for something to happen. Every footstep felt too loud. Every squeak of the cart echoed like it didn't belong to me. I pulled the first box off the pallet and sliced it open with my box cutter. Inside were rows of coffee mugs wrapped in cheap foam. I started lining up one by one, shelf after shelf. I don't know how long I was doing that before I realized I was holding my breath, for no reason. Just holding it. Like I was waiting for a noise, or for something to step out from the edge of the aisle. I let the breath go, glanced around, and laughed under my breath. No one there. Just me and the endless clatter of ceramic and cardboard. I shook it off, told myself I needed more sleep. Still, when I moved to the next box, I kept one eye on the end of the aisle, just in case. About an hour into the shift, I started noticing little things. The kind you'd brush off if you weren't already half dead from monotony. A display of plastic pitchers that had been straight an hour ago was now slightly askew. A box of air fresheners I'd stocked neatly was missing 3 units, even though no customers were around. The radio on my hip hissed. Then silence. Then a low static hum that didn't stop until I unplugged the battery. I thought about calling Amy, but I knew what she'd say, some variation of, "Fix it yourself." The lights above aisle 15 flickered once, then again, and then they stayed dim. Not off, but like someone had turned the brightness down just enough to make your eyes feel like they were failing. I glanced around, half expecting to see Sam playing some dumb prank, but the place felt deserted. Not just empty, deserted. Like even the building itself had given up pretending it was meant for people. In the break room, the vending machine lights were out. The soda bottles inside looked murky, like they were filled with pond water. I tapped the glass. Nothing. I walked back out, but for a second, I thought I saw movement in the reflection of the microwave door. Just a blur, but enough to send that cold trickle down the back of my neck. I stood there, listening. Nothing but the air system droning overhead. And then, something small, click, click, slow and soft, like plastic tapping tile. It stopped. I waited. Then came the sound again. This time from a different aisle. Click, click, click. I grabbed my box cutter. Not because I thought it would help, but because empty hands felt worse. I didn't see Marcus after the first hour, which wasn't that unusual. He liked to disappear into the stockroom or the electronics section to kill time. But usually, he'd check in over the radio at least once. Tonight, nothing. I passed Sam in aisle 4. He looked pale, like he hadn't slept, but that wasn't new either. I asked if he'd seen Marcus. "Not since we clocked in," he said, rubbing his eyes. "Thought he was with you." "Nope." We exchanged that quick glance all night shifters know, the kind that says, "You feel that too?" But no one wants to say it out loud. I finished my cart and wheeled it back through the maze of aisles, toward the back. I figured Marcus was maybe just goofing off in the break room again, but it was dark inside, and cold. I stepped in and noticed his phone on the table, just lying there, screen off, wallet next to it. That made my stomach tighten. Marcus didn't leave his phone, ever. I checked the restroom. Empty. Locker area? Just our stuff. I stood there for a second, breathing slow, trying to logic my way out of this feeling. Maybe he got sick. Maybe Amy sent him home. But wouldn't he have said something? I grabbed my radio and pressed the button. "Marcus, you there?" Just static. I called again, louder this time. Nothing. I walked toward the rear hallway where the emergency exit is, the one that leads behind the building. It was locked like always. I turned around to head back when I saw something on the floor, just at the edge of the shadow. A single work glove. Black, Marcus's size. It was damp. I didn't touch it. I walked slowly down the side aisle toward aisle 9. The lights were flickering again, this time more erratic, like someone messing with the circuit in real time. The air was dense here, stale, as if it hadn't moved in hours. Aisle 9 is where we kept bulk paper towels, cleaning chemicals, and plastic storage bins. It was one of the longer aisles, no mirrors, no windows, just walls of merchandise, and that weird echo that made you feel like your footsteps didn't belong to you. Something was blocking the middle of the aisle. At first, I thought it was a restocking cart someone forgot. But as I got closer, I saw it was a child's toy, one of those old-fashioned, rocking horses, wooden, painted white with peeling red stripes. Not something we sold here. Not something I'd ever seen in any of our shipments. It was facing sideways, tilted slightly, like someone had been riding it and stopped mid-motion. I bent down and touched it with 2 fingers. The wood was cold. Really cold and wet. Not like condensation, more like it had been outside in the rain, which made no sense. Then came the sound again. Click, click, this time closer. I turned to look down the aisle and caught a shape move at the end. Too fast to register clearly, but it ducked behind the end cap like it didn't want to be seen. I stood there, heart thudding. My hand tightened around the box cutter again. Then the rocking horse moved. Just slightly, like something had shifted its weight. And that's when the power cut out completely. Emergency strips near the floor blinked to life, casting long shadows across the aisles. The kind of light that makes every shape look like it's breathing. I didn't want to go to the surveillance room, but I had to. If someone was messing with us, some kind of sick prank, it would show up on the cameras. And if not, I needed to know. The room was up a narrow staircase behind the stockroom, a place no one liked to go. The stairwell smelled like mold and old bleach. My footsteps echoed off the cinder block walls as I climbed, heart pounding like I was doing something illegal. The door was ajar. Inside, monitors lined the wall, most of them dark except for a few glowing weakly. I stepped in and closed the door behind me. One of the screens showed aisle 9. The rocking horse was gone. I leaned closer, rewound the footage. There it was, sitting still. Then, slowly, it began to rock, once, twice. Then, frame by frame, it moved out of view, like it had been pushed or ridden. Another screen flickered. Break room. The vending machine light was back on, but the soda inside looked wrong. The colors were inverted, almost oily, like static had seeped into the video feed. I switched to the back hallway camera. That's when I saw it. Not Marcus. Not Amy. Not anything I could explain. Just a shape. A figure, standing perfectly still in the far corner. No features. No clothes. Just a tall, dark silhouette where there shouldn't have been anything. It didn't move. But I did. I bolted. I ran down the stairs 2 at a time, heart in my throat. I didn't stop until I reached the stockroom again. Everything looked the same, but now the sameness felt wrong. Too still. Too silent. I went straight for the front entrance. The automatic doors didn't budge. I waved my hand in front of the sensor, waited. Nothing. Manual override panel? Dead. Keypad unlit. I tried pushing the glass manually, like that would make a difference. It didn't. The doors were shut tight, like they hadn't been used in weeks. I looked up and noticed something that hadn't been there before. Tape. Thin black electrical tape crisscrossing the inside of the glass, like a spider web holding the doors in place. Subtle. Precise. Deliberate. Someone had done that. I backed away slowly, then the radio on my belt crackled. I hadn't touched it since the static earlier. It hissed again, then came a voice. Not Marcus. Not Sam. Not Amy. Not even fully human. It was like someone trying to imitate speech, but getting the rhythm wrong. A string of words. Out of order. Stretched. Warped. I yanked the battery out without thinking. The silence that followed was somehow louder than the voice had been. I wasn't just trapped. I was being watched. I wasn't sure where to go next. The store had taken on this stretched, echoing quality, like walking through a dream just before it turns into a nightmare. I moved through the aisles with measured steps, trying not to let the sound of my own movement unsettle me, but it didn't work. Every time I stepped, I heard another one. Just a breath off, too close, too deliberate. I picked up my pace slightly, cutting through the seasonal section, past half-stocked Halloween shelves. A skeleton with a broken jaw grinned at me sideways, and in the glossy plastic of a candy rack, I caught a warped reflection mine, and then something behind me. I spun, heart racing, but there was nothing. Just light and shelves. I moved on. The pressure in the air was hard to describe, like walking underwater, like something in the building was waiting for me to notice it. At the next intersection, I paused beneath the overhead mirror, just out of instinct, and that's when I saw it. Not just my reflection, but another figure behind mine, still, watching, too close. I turned around fast, nothing again, but when I looked back up, The shape was still in the mirror. And then, without sound, a crack formed across the glass, splitting our images apart. A whisper followed, barely a breath, but it said my name. I don't know if it came from the intercom system, from down the aisle, or from inside my own head, but it chilled me more than anything else that night. I didn't reply. I just kept walking, not towards safety, not away from danger, but deeper into it. I found Marcus near aisle 16. He was just standing there, arms at his sides, eyes fixed on nothing. At first, I felt relief until I noticed how still he was. People shift when they stand. They adjust, scratch, blink. Marcus didn't. He looked like a prop someone had forgotten to move. I called his name once. No reaction. I stepped closer, cautiously, ready to bolt if I had to. When I reached him, I waved my hand in front of his face. Still nothing. His eyes were open. But there was no focus, no life. It was like looking at someone in deep sleep with their eyes open. Then he moved. Not his face, not his head. Just one hand. It lifted slowly and pointed behind me. I froze. The kind of freeze your body chooses before your brain can even form a thought. I didn't want to look. Every instinct told me not to, but I did. Nothing was there. Just an empty aisle. When I turned back to Marcus, he was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just absence. I backed away, heart hammering, trying to understand what I'd just seen. There hadn't been time for him to run. He couldn't have. And yet, he wasn't there. I called for Sam over the radio without thinking, only to remember I'd pulled the battery earlier. My fingers were trembling. I was starting to doubt myself. Maybe the stress was getting to me. Maybe Marcus had never been there. But deep down, I knew he had. Something had brought him back, and something had taken him away again. I stopped thinking and started moving. Past the aisles, past the stocking carts, toward the receiving bay at the back of the store. There was a service door there, normally sealed, alarmed, but I didn't care. I just needed out. The silence was wrong. Even the buzzing lights had gone quiet. I reached the door and gripped the handle. It didn't budge. I tried again, throwing my weight into it. Still nothing. That's when I noticed it. The floor beneath my feet had started to reflect light wet, but not water. It looked darker, thicker. I stepped back and something skittered into view near the end of the corridor. I couldn't make it out. Not fully. Just a shift in mass, like fabric twisted in the shape of a person. It moved with jerks like it was being dragged. And it was coming straight for me. I bolted, doubling back through the pet food aisle, heart punching at my ribs. I cut through toys, past a display of clearance dolls, all staring in the same direction. Faces blank. I didn't stop to look where they were looking. I saw the emergency ladder near the employee break room. I didn't think. I climbed. 2 steps, then a third. I was on the roof access hatch, praying it wasn't locked. It wasn't. I shoved it open and pulled myself onto the roof, gasping, freezing, heart thudding against cold air. The night sky was flat and black above me, the world below quiet and wrong. I didn't wait. I ran along the rooftop, looking for the ladder on the far side that led to the delivery dock. But I stopped, because from this height, I could see inside the store through the skylights. And someone or something was looking back up at me from everyone. I've always preferred working the night shift. Fewer customers, fewer conversations, and just enough silence to think. At least that's what I used to tell myself. That night at Walmart changed everything about the way I feel about quiet. It was 11:43 p.m. when I clocked in. The store had closed to customers half an hour earlier, and most of the staff had already gone home. I was one of the few left, assigned to reorganize the seasonal section in the stockroom. Nothing unusual, just a few rows of shelves, half filled with unsold Halloween decorations and early Christmas inventory. The kind of clutter no one pays attention to. The security lights were dimmer than usual, and the ceiling fans made that faint ticking sound, like they were always about to stop but never did. I remember pausing for a second before heading into the back. The silence was heavy, not peaceful, but expectant, like the store was holding its breath. I pushed my cart through the swinging doors into the stockroom. Cold air hit me right away. It always felt colder back there, even with the heating on. I shrugged it off and started breaking down a stack of cardboard boxes. My gloves were slightly damp from the condensation on one of the freezers nearby, and I remember thinking I should have brought the thicker pair. The intercom clicked on for a second, just static, then it went quiet again. That wasn't uncommon. The old system glitched all the time. I kept my head down and kept working. After about 15 minutes, I realized I hadn't heard a single other person. No footsteps, no radio chatter, not even the usual buzz from the cleaning crew's machines. I figured maybe they were still on break. But something about the silence made the back of my neck tighten. I stopped moving for a second, just to listen. Nothing. Just the hum of the freezer and the quiet ticking of the overhead lights. That was when I first noticed the faint scraping noise, like a cart rolling over uneven tiles. It came from somewhere deeper in the stockroom, beyond the tall shelves. I froze. I didn't move. Not out of fear, at least not yet, but because I wanted to believe it was just another worker. Only I knew I was supposed to be the only one back there. I took a deep breath and called out, just loud enough to be heard, but not so loud that I'd feel stupid if no one answered. Hello? No response. No shuffling, no voice, no footsteps retreating. Just that same low hum of the freezer behind me. I didn't like the idea of walking deeper into the storage aisles, but part of me needed to rule out the obvious. Maybe someone from the day shift stayed behind and forgot to clock out. Maybe someone was just messing around. I picked up my flashlight, more for comfort than anything, and moved slowly past the tall shelves. The layout back there was like a maze. Narrow paths between stacks of pallets, shelves almost touching the ceiling. Visibility was awful, and the motion sensors didn't always work, so half the corridor was lit and the other half dipped into shadow. That's when I heard it again, closer now. A rolling noise, like wheels turning too fast and suddenly halting. I stopped. My grip on the flashlight tightened. I clicked it on and swept the light ahead. Empty. Nothing there. But I noticed something new. A box on the floor that hadn't been there earlier. It was out of place, angled diagonally in the middle of the walkway. I stepped closer, carefully, and nudged it with my foot. Light. Completely empty. I turned back to return to my task. As I walked, I passed the break room door and saw it slightly open. It had been closed before I was sure of that. I leaned in, expecting maybe someone had gone in for a nap. The light inside was off. Anybody in there? Nothing. I stepped back, shut the door, and tried to push the whole thing out of my mind. I even laughed quietly to myself, trying to break the tension in my chest. But as I reached the end of the corridor to go back to my station, I heard it again. This time, unmistakable. A cart rolled down the aisle behind me, fast, and stopped. Dead silent again. I didn't turn around right away. Something in my body locked up, as if even the idea of looking would make whatever was there real. The silence was sharp now, no hum, no ticking, not even my breath. Just the weight of something behind me, waiting. I finally forced myself to move. Slowly, I turned. And there it was. A shopping cart, parked neatly at the end of the aisle. I hadn't heard it arrive, only the rolling and the stop. There was no one around. No echo of steps, no shadow moving. Just that cart, perfectly still. I stepped forward cautiously, flashlight aimed straight ahead. It wasn't a regular cart. This one was old, dusty, with one wheel slightly bent. Looked like it had been pulled from storage. I didn't remember seeing it earlier, not in that part of the store. I approached, my boots creaking against the concrete floor. As I got closer, I noticed something inside. At first, I thought it was just a folded receipt, but when I leaned over, I saw it was a sticker. A name tag, the kind we wore on our vests. It had my name on it. My exact name, handwritten in marker. I froze. My hands started to sweat. I hadn't lost my tag. Mine was still clipped to my vest. I checked, and yeah, it was right there. So why was there a second one? I looked around again, this time with real panic flickering behind my eyes. Someone was messing with me. Had to be. Maybe it was a prank from the guys in electronics, but none of them were on shift tonight. I was sure of that. I didn't want to touch the cart, but I couldn't leave it there either. I took the name tag and pocketed it, then pushed the cart aside against the wall. It made a squeaking sound that echoed strangely through the empty aisle. When I turned to walk back, I thought I heard a soft scuffle behind me. I spun around, nothing. But the overhead lights above me flickered for half a second. Something about that moment, about the timing of it, made my stomach turn. I picked up my pace, heading straight back to my section. No more curiosity. No more exploring. I needed to finish my shift and get out of there. But even as I got back to my pallet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been noticed, seen, marked. Back at my station, I couldn't focus. The boxes in front of me blurred together, and every little sound felt magnified. I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting something or someone to be there. After a few minutes of pretending to work, I gave in. I had to know if someone else had been in the stockroom. The security office wasn't far, just around the corner and up a short hallway. I slipped in, shut the door behind me, and sat at the terminal. The screen flickered to life. I pulled up the cameras facing the storage area where I'd heard the sounds. I scanned the footage from the last 30 minutes. Nothing at first, just me, moving boxes, walking around. Then something caught my eye. At minute 22:41, one of the rear cameras, camera 14, picked up a shadow near the far shelves. It wasn't shaped like a cart. It moved differently. Like someone walking, slowly, not smooth, hesitant, maybe even limping. I rewound and zoomed in. The screen pixelated, but I could make out the shape of a person in a hoodie. Couldn't see a face. Just a figure pacing at the end of the aisle I'd just been in. Then, suddenly, the screen glitched. Horizontal lines scrambled the image, and when it cleared, he was gone. No transition, no walking away. Just vanished. I clicked over to camera 15, positioned on the adjacent hallway. There he was again, only this time, he wasn't walking. He was standing still, turned toward the camera, head slightly tilted, as if staring straight into the lens. As if he knew I was watching. I leaned back, heart pounding. It felt wrong. Not just creepy, violating, like someone had stepped too far into my space. Into me. I switched to the live feed of the office hallway. Nothing. Then, behind me, I heard it. A soft beep. The kind the terminal makes when someone logs in or out. But I hadn't touched anything. I turned around. Empty. I looked back at the screen and froze. On camera 12, the one just outside the security office, a shape passed by. Barely a blur. But something. Close, too close. My throat tightened. I stood, backing away from the desk. I didn't want to be in that room anymore. I didn't care about the job, or the rules, or whether I'd get in trouble. I just wanted to be somewhere else. Anywhere else. The hallway outside the security office was darker than I remembered. Maybe the lights had dimmed, or maybe it was just me seeing everything through panic. I walked fast, too fast, and reached for the door that led back to the main storage area. Locked. I tried the handle again. Pulled harder. Nothing. It wasn't jammed. It had been locked from the outside. I stood there, staring at the metal door. I hadn't heard anyone walk past. No sound, no movement. But someone had been close. Close enough to trap me inside. I reached for the radio clipped to my vest. Unit 7, anyone on the floor? Static. Hello? This is Alex in security. I'm in the office. The door's locked. Anyone copy? More static, then silence. Then a faint noise, like someone breathing. But the channel was still open, and no one responded. I shut off the radio and backed away from the door. My palms were sweating again. There were no windows in the security office. No way to see out. I was boxed in. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Outside the door. Each step was precise, almost measured. Like whoever was out there wanted me to hear them. I held my breath and stepped back further. My eyes scanned the room for anything, any tool, any exit. Nothing but equipment and filing cabinets. The footsteps stopped. I waited. And then something even worse. Silence. That kind of silence that presses against your ears. That makes you feel like something is behind you, even when you know it's not. The air was heavier now. I didn't want to stay in that room a second longer. I turned back to the door and kicked it hard, once, twice. On the third hit, the latch gave and the door burst open. Empty hallway. I stepped out slowly, every part of me screaming to run, but my legs obeying caution. The corridor was lit now just as it should have been. I checked left, right. Nothing. Then I saw it. In the center of the main aisle stood the same cart from before, but it wasn't where I'd left it. It was back in the middle of the path, facing me, and sitting inside it something new. Another name tag. This one read, "Last round." I didn't touch the cart. I couldn't. I walked past it, eyes fixed forward, ignoring the new name tag. My body was trembling, every step tighter than the last. I needed to get out of that building. I reached the central stockroom. Something was wrong. Boxes I had stacked earlier gone, whole rows looked emptier. But the inventory list on the terminal said nothing had been moved. I checked the side exit, unlocked, wide open. A cold breeze slipped in. I looked back once, just once, at the room behind me. The lights flickered, just like they had before. One by one, each overhead beam dimmed slightly, as if something was passing underneath. My phone was in my pocket. I pulled it out to call someone security, anyone. Dead, battery drained. I'd charged it before the shift, full battery, now nothing. I left, no checkout, no report. I just walked out into the dark parking lot, trying not to run. As I passed the front doors, I looked back. Someone was standing inside, between the shelves. My dad always told me there was honor in being a Walmart greeter. I believed him until the day he died, collapsed right in the middle of the garden aisle, smiling at some woman he didn't know. After the funeral, I got a call from one of his coworkers. They needed someone to fill his spot. I didn't have a job. I didn't have options, so I said yes. I thought I'd be handing out carts, smiling at people, ignored, safe. But by my third shift, I noticed the other greeters never left on time. They'd disappear into the back at 11 p.m., right before closing. No one talked about it. No one asked. Until the night I followed them. The last customer shuffled out, and I stayed at my post, pretending to lock up. Then I slipped into the hallway behind the employee-only sign. The air back there smelled wrong, like metal and ozone. I passed shelves stacked with broken fans, forgotten toys, and a pile of uniforms that didn't look like ours. One was covered in something black and dried. I found them by the freight elevator. All 5 greeters standing silently. One held a lantern. No one spoke. No one looked surprised to see me. The elevator doors creaked open. They stepped in. So did I. The elevator didn't go down. It sank. That's the only word that fits. My stomach lifted like on a drop tower ride, but slower, like gravity changed its mind. We ended up in a tunnel lit by faint red lights. The floor was polished, like someone cleaned it daily. No one explained anything. We walked. Eventually, the tunnel opened into a chamber. That's when I saw it. A massive black rock. Volcanic maybe, but smooth. Too smooth. Like it had been carved by something that didn't need tools. It pulsed, just barely but enough to make my skin tingle. Everyone formed a circle around it. I did too. One by one, they stepped forward, placed their hand on the stone, then stumbled back like they'd touched a socket. And every time they did, something appeared. A memory, a moment, a person. I watched someone fall to their knees as their dead wife embraced them. I watched a man bite into a steak that shimmered like it was cooked by a god. I saw a woman cry as her child, who I swear hadn't aged a day, held her hand. Then they looked at me. "You're up." I didn't move. They didn't pressure me, just waited. So I stepped forward. I placed my hand on the stone. It burned. And then I saw him, my father, younger, smiling, holding a jet black T-Rex toy we used to play with. I wanted to say something, but before I could, he turned and walked into the woods behind the chamber, and the image faded. I pulled my hand back. My skin was fine. No burn, no mark. The others clapped, not like a celebration, more like a confirmation. The bearded one handed me a new vest. "You're in now." The next few weeks I started to understand, or at least I thought I did. Working the front wasn't the job, it was the mask. The real work happened in silence, observation, selection. It started as a feeling, a tickle in the base of my skull when certain people walked through the doors. At first I ignored it. Then I started keeping track. They'd always return. Always alone, always late, and eventually they'd vanish. I tried not to think about it. Tried to pretend I was still just smiling and nodding, but the feeling grew stronger. One day, I followed the pull-out to the parking lot. Found a man standing between two cars, looking lost. He asked me if I'd seen a girl drop her wallet. I hadn't, but something told me to keep him there. So I did. That night, the greeters took a different route, through a side door, out into the woods behind the store. The man was there, unconscious. I didn't ask how. I didn't want to know. We walked in silence. Lantern swinging. The rock was waiting. It always was. They placed him in front of it, one hand on his forehead, one on the stone. There was a crack like thunder underwater, and the man was gone. Not dead, just gone. No blood, no scream, just gone. That night I didn't sleep, but I came to work the next day. And the day after that, it became routine, predictable, almost. Until the day I felt it again, stronger than ever. But this time, it wasn't a stranger. It was Colin, the same Colin who used to follow me home, who told kids my dad was a failure, who made Wally Walmart my unofficial school name. He walked in laughing, pushing a cart like he owned the place. Looked right at me. "No way, you two," he said. "You finally took your loser dad's job?" He laughed so loud it made a kid cry. I smiled, nodded, and waited. That night we didn't take the bus. We walked through the back door, into the woods. Colin didn't scream when they grabbed him. He just cursed, kicked, threatened lawyers. It didn't matter. At the rock, I was the one chosen to place the hand. Mine on his chest, other on the stone. He looked me in the eyes and said, "You're gonna regret this." But I didn't. I felt the energy surge. Saw the flash, and Colin was gone. We didn't speak of what happened. No ceremony, no explanations. Just uniforms folded neatly on a table by the rock. One of the greeters handed me a fresh vest, dark blue, stiffer than the one I wore before, with a new badge. Training complete. We rode the bus back before sunrise. I didn't ask where they took the remains. I didn't ask why no one looked sad, no one slept. Some hummed Walmart radio jingles like lullabies. I sat in the same seat my father probably used 100 times. It didn't feel triumphant. It didn't feel wrong. It just felt inevitable. The next morning, I was back at the front doors. No one knew what I'd done. Shoppers flowed in, distracted, oblivious. A toddler dropped his juice box and burst into tears. His mother sighed and dragged him along, and then he walked in. Colin's dad. He gave me a polite nod. "Morning," I said, automatic. He didn't respond, just pushed a cart and kept walking. I watched his back as he disappeared past the snack aisle, turning toward the freezer section. I stayed at my post, smiling, nodding, waiting for whatever came next. Each shift began the same vest on, doors open, greetings automatic. The routine kept me grounded. At least that's what I told myself. But the feeling never went away. That buzz beneath the skin. That low hum behind the walls. The rock wasn't just waiting out there in the woods. It was under everything. Behind everything. Some nights I'd hear it in my dreams. Not words, not even thoughts, just pressure. A kind of gravity that pulled at the center of my chest. Some nights I'd wake up standing in the middle of the employee lot, barefoot, heart racing, unsure how I'd gotten there. I stopped asking questions. Then one night, during restock, I found a small notebook tucked behind the customer service desk. Yellowed, frayed, water damaged. Inside, pages and pages of names, notes, symbols I didn't recognize. But what chilled me wasn't the content, it was the handwriting. It was my dad's. He had cataloged everything. The feedings, the reactions, the transformations, even his own doubts. One entry stood out. Some of us change. Some of us disappear. The lucky ones forget. That night, I stood outside the building long after closing. I didn't go into the woods. I didn't call the others. I just stood there, staring past the treetops, feeling the shape of something watching. Not from the forest, from below. It's easy to pretend nothing's wrong in daylight. Easy to convince yourself that you're just working a job, making ends meet, doing what your father did, until you feel the next pull, until the rock hungers again. And it always does. If you've ever gone through something similar, or know someone who has, leave a comment below. Sometimes, just telling it is already a way to protect yourself. And if this video made you think twice before letting your guard down, then it was already worth it. And if you want to keep hearing stories that might help keep you alive, subscribe. The next story could be yours.